especially when we're going to be talking about that context is everything. Yeah, exactly right. You know,
wake up. Yeah.
Our first speaker is only going to present for 5 minutes, and then 15 minutes of Q&A is what he said. No, first up though, we do have Brian Selzer from Daiquiri, who's going to be talking about contextual augmented reality. So
great. Hi everybody. Do I use this mic? Hello. Does this work? Yeah, great. Hi, I'm Brian Selzer. I'm Vice President of Business Development and Product Development at Daiquiri. Daiquiri's a sponsor here. If you haven't seen the big white booth out there, that's us. Based in Los Angeles and focused on a lot of different augmented reality initiatives. As far as introductions to myself, I've been in the digital media space for too long, bringing a lot of big IP, Spider-Man, Halo, NBA to mobile platforms, to emerging platforms, focused on a lot of emerging technologies like location-based services, of course, augmented reality. And really, you know, I love just being sort of 1 foot in the present and 1 foot in the future, really trying to push the envelope on entertainment, the future of storytelling, and really just looking at all these technologies and really finding the right point of when we're converging in an opportunity to really do something special, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to talk about context, which is really seems to be the general theme of this conference. You saw the keynote with Scoble. Did a lot of you see that? Yeah. Hand raise, yeah? So when we're talking about context, we kind of know what's going on there, and so I'm going to fly through a couple of the intro slides on that, but that's a really important theme, I think, for this conference in general as a takeaway, and so let's dive in. You've heard content is king. Well, we'll talk about context is king, and that's really where we are today. Our mobile devices are designed to know us at a deep level. That's sort of a given, right? We've got these computers in our pocket that are collecting all sorts of data on our location, who we're with, where we are, what we're doing, really intelligent machines, and they deliver content to us based on this knowledge. We're moving now into this wearables era. We're hearing a lot about wearables, and as the price point comes down on these, you're going to see a lot of these enter the market. There's a lot of buzz about things like Apple has the iWatch potentially coming out, which again, another smart device that has all these sensors on it, perhaps even connected to some biometric sensors like your heart rate and what can you do with that type of a data. This is moving into clearly the Google Glass, eyewear, all sorts of different sensors, even into your shoes. Here's an example of the Nike Hyperdunk. I don't work for Nike, but I just thought it was interesting that, you know, these sensors are going to your shoes and really collecting data on the speed of how fast you're running, the force of your jumping and landing, and all this data is being collected. And what do you do with this data? How do you visualize it? So there's what's called the quantified self movement. I'm sure many of you have heard of that. That's perhaps an interesting application where this data that's collected could be used to analyze your performance, and you change that performance based on it to really optimize yourself as an athlete. And I think what one of the key takeaways here is, how do you get this information? Again, the iWatch is an interesting one because you have a shorter time to not having to reach into your pocket to pull out a phone to at the end of the day look at what's going on, but you can glance at your watch in real time, and theoretically in the near future, you'll have your eyewear, and you can, in again, real time, get some data that is relevant to that situation. We've been talking about the Internet of Things, and that's a big one, right? That these devices, not only do you have your mobile device, not only do you have all these wearable devices that are coming out and these different gadgets, but sensors are being put into everything, right? And when I say everything, I mean anything that can give you data that's relevant, there's likely going to be a sensor in there. And this is, you know, this means your cars, your homes, your, you know, cities, really, buildings, everything has sensors in it. And there's a little bit of talk here about Bluetooth smart, you know, Bluetooth low energy, and the idea of these beacons that can be placed in any location, and you turn malls and stadiums into places that are aware of the people that are coming in. So location is a big part of this. These are really low cost, low power transmitters, and they're aware of the environment. So how would you use this type of technology, which is now slowly getting integrated into our world? Actually, Robert Scoble ended sort of on the privacy, sort of the freak factor of that, and that's something that always comes up in these conversations. And this is the way I look at it. The time to lament over privacy is over. It is over in the way that we think about it traditionally. And the new way to think about it is transparency. It's about thinking about the exchange that you have between these businesses and giving the power back to the individual to understand how their data stream, their privacy is being used. So right now in today's, today's world, you hit the little accept when you're going into any website, and it says read our terms of services, and it's like 50 pages long, and you typically don't read it, and you click accept just because you want that content. But in the back of your mind, you know that there's a lot of legal stuff going on there. I think the whole next revolution here is going to be in giving users very clear understanding of what personal data they're giving out to businesses and what kind of data those businesses are collecting in a very intuitive way, much more intuitive than even like a Facebook gives you when you go into their privacy settings. And this is going to be our new definition of privacy, really. It's going to be about understanding. I mean, it's a given. There's cameras everywhere. There's cameras probably all over this conference room. We're all carrying cameras. Our eyeglasses are, the smart glasses have cameras. People are life blogging now, recording every movement everywhere. That's just the nature of this world. And it plays into what we're building if we know how to utilize that and really harness that. So let's talk a little about AR. So I'll kind of pick up now where all that contextual talk left off at the keynote and talk about a couple of things that are relevant to augmented reality. So I started focusing on augmented reality back in about 2009. Actually co-founded a company called Augmento. Ori Imbar was my partner who started this event. And we were really pioneering when it came to mobile, looking at image recognition and looking at things around the world and triggering these augmented reality experiences. And now flash forward to 2014, 15, there's still a lot of that. There's a lot of, and don't get me wrong, this is a big foundation and important piece of augmented reality where you look at something and you recognize that image, and image recognition is a big part of it. But as far as the experience, there's a lot of this sort of what I call pop-up book mentality where something pops out and that wow factor is there, but then it's not really a repeatable experience. You see it once, twice, you're kind of done with it. And so we're moving beyond that now, and that's really great to hear a lot of us talking about how we move beyond that. Another really early augmented reality play was the AR browser using location-based services. Again, another really important and key feature to augmented reality of understanding where we are and getting data relevant to our environment around us. And in this case, we had a lot of these AR browsers, Layer, Wikitude, that you hold up your camera and you get to see what's around you, where the nearest Starbucks is. And that's really interesting. However, the form factor kind of fights us, right? Because you get a little arm fatigue, and you don't really see a lot of people using this feature on an everyday basis. However, there's something very inherently powerful there. And as we move towards wearables in that world, this is going to come much more into play again. So definitely relevant, but perhaps not for the current form factors. And this is a Microsoft sort of conceptual image of where this is all going. But AR, to help us visualize the Internet of Everything, is really where the opportunity is and where it's going. So we've all seen this slide, and I think this the slides that I put together, this is probably one of the biggest points that I wanted to make, was that AR has the potential to be the UI of the world, right? It's conveying the data about us, everything around us. And that is the true potential, I believe, of this technology. So here's pop quiz time. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before. Which is more effective at getting drivers to slow down? Is it the instant feedback, or is it getting a speeding ticket 2 weeks later in the mail? Anybody? Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this has been proven time and time again that will get you to slow down right away as soon as you see that, right? So what we're talking about is instant feedback loops. And that is a huge part of the value of what we're building here, where you're taking an action, there's an effect from that action. If you can see the feedback from that effect in real time and make a real-time change to what you're doing, there's true power in that. So the go-to on-the-go platform guys, they're actually here. They have this one conceptual image which I love. So now let's talk about a couple of concepts using context. This one they call Ghost Runner. And I just love this for the whole quantified self movement, which is the idea that, again, we're all familiar with like Nike Plus, and you're running and you can actually see what your speed was and what track you were using, that sort of thing. But imagine a scenario where, and this is taken from a classic video game, Mario Kart, but imagine a scenario where you ran a track and then the next day you're running that track and there is a virtual ghost avatar of yourself from the previous day running on that track. And it actually runs past you. You would then instantly know that I'm moving slower on the track today than I was yesterday. I got to pick up my pace. And you're sort of gamifying that whole experience. Okay, now I'm running and you're racing against yourself. This is, a really intelligent use, I think, of, a future scenario with augmented reality where, theoretically you could have your, your sport wearable glasses with your heads-up display image and getting that real-time feedback loop of data. That's the problem, I think, with the quantified self movement right now is you're collecting all these metrics and all this data, and then at the end of the day or at the end of the week, you're just looking at numbers and stats. It doesn't really mean anything to you unless you put it into the experience at that time. And this is, of course, this is a given, I think, now to a lot of us, which is, the heads-up display, head-mounted display. That's where a lot of this, thank you, a lot of this technology really comes into play. And you think about all the professions out there where you need to make decisions in a second, in a minute, whether you're, military, firefighters, pilots. This is where we're seeing a lot of the augmented reality applications going. Is like where the form factor of a helmet for a firefighter makes perfect sense to have that kind of a visual feedback in real time to oxygen levels or heat or where the victims are that you need to take out of the fire, that sort of thing. I come from the video game world, and just like movies like Iron Man, you look to the heads-up display designs that have been going on for 10, 20 years. This is where we get a lot of great design ideas. Actually, I kind of laughed at the first Google Glass concept video because all the UI, if you recall, was like right in the middle of the screen, and it had kind of weird buttons that you potentially would need to tap. Maybe it gave them a few ideas of where to take this, but look to games and entertainment, and there's a lot of really good thinking. I know companies are hiring the people that design the Iron Man UX or something like that because there's a lot of good thinking behind that. And just I'll go through just a couple quick scenarios. Going back to the Internet of Things, you've got smart homes and smart kitchens. It's like, what kind of story will the kitchen tell you of the future? Personally, I would love to have an environment where maybe it gives me a recipe based on knowing what food is in my refrigerator, and then guides me through a cooking lesson right there in my kitchen. That could potentially be something in the future, where the environment is intuitive enough and understands how to guide me in that particular environment. We're all familiar with Minority Report and sort of how it predicted a lot of the future. And there's that classic scene of Tom Cruise running through the mall, and then all these ads are popping up saying, "Hey, Tom, do this, go buy this." Again, that's a big part of where you're seeing a lot of this contextual awareness go is predictive companies that are trying to predict what you want when you want it. So when you walk into the mall, it's putting coupons and discounts in your face. I challenged the Minority Report. They got it mostly right, but I would think that in a future like that, we're going to get to a level where it knows Tom Cruise is running, his heartbeat is beating really fast, he's sweating, and even predict, "Hey, Tom, maybe you need to take a vacation, or maybe you need this, stress medicine or something," because it's going to get to that level of being predictive rather than serving up a Lexus car ad because it doesn't make sense in that particular situation that he's shopping for cars when he's running through the scene. We've got Siri and Google Now and Microsoft, named after Halo, they have the Cortana, all these AI assistants. I think that's another great area to be looking at is the idea of these virtual avatars that actually not only tell you AI type information, but can actually show you. So the idea of a coach or a tour guide or something like that. I think we'll see that in the future. And they're very aware of who you are, where you are, and can guide you through something in real time. I love gaming. Pervasive gaming is the idea that games are everywhere, all around you, all the time, and are relevant to your situation. So whether you're out in a park or in a mall, the game experience will adapt and evolve based on that knowledge. And a lot of people are looking at that space. I think that's a great area. And final thoughts. We're on the path to integrating with the Internet of Everything, AI as the UI, UX of the world. And contextual awareness is setting the stage for a world of true ambient intelligence. I think that's the next big buzzword, which sort of combines all of this. Perfect timing. I have 1 minute left. It's my last slide. Ambient intelligence. These are embedded, context-aware, highly personal, reactive, adaptive, anticipatory, constantly evolving. That is our future. Thank you very much. Perfect timing. 15 minutes flat. We have time for 1 or 2 questions? Yeah. Yes, Helen.
Yep. Thank you. Terrific talk, Brian. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you say. I'm just wondering how DAQRI is looking to apply some of these kind of contextually relevant experiences.
Sure, absolutely. So there's been a lot of fun experimentation and really, I think, looking for those true killer apps to work with partners together on. Quick examples would be DAQRI has these really fun cubes that are just giveaway little spongy cubes, but they're showing some really interesting contextual relevant potential. One of the cubes will show you weather, for an example, and based on where you are, and I was actually traveling around with this cube and going to different meetings and stuff, and ended up in a place where it was freezing cold and it was snowing, and I was showing the cube, and I didn't even realize that the cube was actually had a snow animation. And I'm like, oh, this is the first time I actually got to see this, but it was a really good example of where I was, giving me an experience based on that. And I think that's a really key part, is that the experience based on little simple things like time of day or weather and things like that can change. The content experience can change based on that. So I mean, that's just a little simple example, but then you can see how you could scale that out to much bigger experiences, and that's one example. Yeah. Great. One more. Yeah.
I'm Simon. Thanks, Brian. Tell me about the emergence of gaming in VR and marketing and advertising, and where you think you'll intersect it first.
Yeah, so we've already done some intersecting, and I think one great use case from my past was we tied Halo franchise together with Pepsi and 7-Eleven. So you had a retail partner, you had a consumer product, and then you had this game. And it was an early experiment, but I think everybody came away really happy from an experiment like that, because we were basically turning the world into this playground where you can run around, and it was a territory-based game. And in that particular situation, you were taking over 7-Elevens as part of the territory. And it's just one example of people running around and having fun and then getting rewards for that. So as you took over these territories, you had unlockables, and you can unlock codes back into the Xbox experience where you were getting exclusive helmets and assets from the actual console game. So there was a nice reward mechanism, but it was also looking at Pepsi products, Doritos, Mountain Dew, that sort of thing, was also part of the power-up in that game. So everything sort of tied together holistically, and that was, I think, just scratching the surface. So we'll see a lot more games where the advertisements or the sponsors find more seamless ways to integrate, where it's not just an ad interrupting your experience, but is worked into the themes, and through some of this contextually aware, knowledge that we have, because you've liked a certain product on Facebook or something like that, we'll know that those are the kinds of products that you wouldn't mind getting discounts to or liking. So I think we'll see some interesting experimentation, and it'll probably take a while to get like the perfect model together where everybody is, jumping into this on a mass scale. But there's a lot of really interesting experimentation going on right now. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Thank you.